In this training video, we will be going over how to input subcontractor information like EINs and social security numbers and addresses into your accounting system. And this is so that your tax professional can easily and seamlessly pull this information from that system to produce the 1099 tax forms at the end of the year. And this is going to save us time, which will mean saving you money. So we're going to be demonstrating this in 3 systems: Xero, QuickBooks Online, and QuickBooks Desktop. So let's get started. First things first, you will see a W-9 on the screen. And this is, you want to make sure that you get the W-9 before you pay your contractor. But we know this doesn't always happen. So when you do get the W-9, this is what it's going to look like. We have our name, the address of the contractor, and then their social security number or employer identification number. So we have this as our sample. So we are going to use this information to plug into our different accounting systems. So to start off with, we're going to start with Xero. And to input that information, we're going to go to Contacts, All Contacts. Now, most likely, the vendor has already been added to your system, but if not, we will go over how to add a contact in just a second. So for this contact, their name is Acme LLC. And what you would do to add the tax ID number and address would be Edit. And you're going to see that contact name. You can also add their name, their phone number. Here's where we're going to plug in their address. So from our W-9, we can see that their address has been updated. So we're going to plug that new information in. And all of this information comes from the W-9 that you will get from your contractor or vendor. Now their tax ID information, you're going to find a little bit lower on the screen under financial details. And we're going to make sure that that number is correct. If it has changed, we can change that here. We will click Save. Now, if we are adding a new contact system and we have their tax ID information already, we can go to Add Contact. This is the ideal situation. And here you can type in their name, their address, and again, their financial details down here at the bottom. Now, if they do not have an EIN, but they have a social security number, you can click to have that field selected and type in that number and hit Save. So what we want to do when we add a contractor to Xero is we want to add them to the contractor group that you can see here. And the way to do that would be we're going to search for them or find them in the list of contacts. We'll click on Options, Add to Group. And we're going to click off the Contractors button. So this is extremely helpful for your tax professional because then at the end of the year, they can pull a list of all of the contractors that are in this contractor group. Ideally, they would all have their tax ID information, address, things like that in their contact details. And we can easily, again, seamlessly produce the 1099s with that information. We'll go ahead and move on to QuickBooks Online next. To do what we just did, adding the contact, their tax ID number, their address, we're going to go to Expenses, Vendors. This will take us to the Vendor Center. If the contact or vendor is already in the Vendor Center, we will click on them, hit Edit. And this is to add their address and their tax ID number. And we want to make sure that this track payments for 1099 button is checked. And that is important because when we do pull a report of 1099 vendors, the only way it shows up in our list is if that button is checked. So we would want to just double check with the W-9 to make sure that their information is correct and up to date. If we are just adding a new vendor, we would go, again, this is expenses, vendors, new vendor, type in their name, we would plug in their address here and their business ID number or tax ID number, whether that is an EIN or a social security number here, and again, track that payment for 1099 and click Save. Unlike Xero, QuickBooks Online does not have a way to group your 1099 vendors, but they do have reports that we can pull that will show those vendors on a list. And lastly, we will explore QuickBooks Desktop. To add subcontractor information, we will go to Vendors, Vendor Center. And if they are already in our vendor list, we can double click on that vendor or single click, pull up the vendor information on the sidebar, and we will click Edit, which looks like a pencil. So here we will make sure that their name is correct according to the W-9, add an address if it wasn't already added. And under tax settings, we have a box to put in their vendor tax ID. So we would just add that and make sure that the box vendor eligible for 1099 is checked. Again, there's no way to group vendors by a contractor list in QuickBooks Desktop like there is in Xero, but we can pull a report that shows which vendors have this box checked off. If we're adding a new vendor, we would come up to the top of the window, click on New Vendor, vendor name. We could add their company name if it's different from the vendor name. We would add their address here. Under tax settings, again, we find that box vendor tax ID where we would add their EIN or social security number. Again, check that box, vendor eligible for 1099. That's extremely important. So you would click OK to save, and they would be on your list, and we could pull a report if they were to receive a 1099. So I hope this helps you to navigate whichever accounting system you are using to put in that subcontractor information needed to produce those 1099s. And if you have any questions, please feel free to give us a call at the office.